Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestdummies.com, and today I want to have a little chat with you about metal foils, metal films, and metal leafing. These are some really wonderful products that will make your projects shimmer and shine, but it's important to know what they are and how to use them. Let's get started. Today I have a really fun topic for you. Metal foils, metal leaves, and films. And the question is, what are they and how might you use them? We know that the basic idea is to give your projects a metallic shine or sheen. But they're each a little bit different and use different adhesives and on different materials, so I thought it'd be good just to kind of go over them. The first thing we're going to talk about are metal leaves. And when I say metal leaf, I don't really mean necessarily gold leaf, because we're talking about composites, but this is a really good example of what metal leafing is. You see how it has almost a tissue-like texture to it. It's very light. You can find these that are actual like 18 karat gold, actual silver leaf. What is this that I have here? It's very prone, by the way, to static electricity and it will stick to you. Also, you do not want to use this where there is a stiff breeze blowing because it will blow everywhere. So this is a composition silver, and you get a stack of them, and each one is in between a layer of tissue paper because, as I mentioned, here's a little piece flying through the air. It will fly everywhere. Okay, getting an idea of that? There we go. Here's a whole leaf. Now, this is particularly good if you want to have that real metal leafing look. You can apply this onto things like picture frames or polymer clay or wood surfaces, and it's just a really high-end, luxurious look. Of course, buying it in these big sheets means that it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Now, if you're willing to save a few dollars, you can get metal leafing in smaller bits and in baggies. So this is again a composition leaf. You'll notice that it's not in that nice big smooth sheet. These are much smaller pieces and they're a little crumpled up. They work just the same, but maybe not so much for like covering one big area. This is better for maybe rubber stamping or covering small bits. Now, what I also like about metal leafing is that it comes in gold, silver, copper, even some foils and slicks. But this would really be meant to be used in little bits at a time. And then when you're done, you can just stuff the rest back into the baggie and you're pretty much good to go. But as I mentioned before, this stuff is also very prone to static and it will kind of stick everywhere. Whew. Next, let's talk about foils. Now these can be called mylar-backed foils or plastic-backed foils, but when we talk about metal foiling, this is kind of the product I'm thinking of. And what you're going to find is that it's very crinkly, but you've got the front side which shows you the pattern of the foiling. So here you can see this is like an oil slick. This is a beautiful teal blue. This set by Creative Imaginations comes in kind of like a rainbow of pinks and purples and oranges. But what it is, if you look on the back side, see how it's just plain silver. So this is actually the side that will get the adhesive. You'll put your adhesive down, put it on top like this, and burnish it. Now, what I'm finding is that for a while this was hard to find. Jones Tones was the original brand for this, but we're really lucky that Purple Cows has some out. This was a kit I got at a quilting guild. Like I said, Creative Imaginations has some. Even Cool Tack has it now. So again, really fun and great for paper because it comes in so many different colors. It's really lightweight and it's really easy to use. So I'm going to show you how we're going to use it next. Your next question may be, how am I going to get these great metal foils and leaves onto my project? Well, of course, you've got to have the right adhesive for the job. If you're working on paper or burlap or cardstock, basically, you know, your paper projects, you can use everything from a plain tape runner, double sticky tape, or even one of these glues. Now, both of these particular brands of glue, the Best Glue Ever by Scrap Perfect and the Coats and Create Beacon Surface Makeover Glue, dries sticky. So you can put these down on your project. Of course, it's going to be tacky, and then your metal leaf and foil will stick to it. Now, you can also use something like the Scrapbook Adhesives 3D foam shapes, which are made specifically for things like foiling and flocking, or even these stickers from Clear Snap that have different patterns. You just lift these off and stick them on, and they're sticky. Or if you like to use your rubber stamps, you can use a sticky embossing powder. Now this particular one is from Purple Cows, but what you do is you would use something like a Versamark pad, you would stamp, sprinkle this on top, and then when you heat it, it becomes sticky so that you can use your metal foils and leafing. Now if you're going to use a fabric, you're going to need a special adhesive for that, and this is a kit that I had gotten a while ago specifically for foiling on fabric, and it has an adhesive inside for fabric only. So make sure you're using the right adhesive for the job. Now let's go through a few swatches. So I've got some Surface Makeover adhesive, and I've got some Scrap Perfect, and I have a little bit of this stuff from Purple Cows. It's the double sticky embossing powder. And then of course this is just, what's that called? Like score tape, double sticky tape. Now as you can see, if you want it to be super perfect, you can lay down the whole sheet of leafing. I'm really just using up my leftovers here, so I'm picking up a little bit with my stipple brush, because like I said, it does like static electricity. It will fly around. And I'm just applying it right on and then kind of burnishing it off with the same tool. Here we go. Now, one thing I noticed about this particular brand, the Purple Cows brand of sticky embossing powder, is that if you let it sit for any amount of time, it starts to lose its sticky. It actually kind of like cools down and stops being adhesive. So what I did is I went back and I reheated it real quick right before I started the camera. But if I were doing this at home in my craft room, I would go ahead and heat up the powder and then apply my stuff right away. I wouldn't let it sit. So, but as you can see, when you use the glues like the Surface Makeover glue, you are going to get a raised texture. And then even with just the tape, you get a little bit more bulk than say the metal foils, the mylar-backed foils. But the effect is really, really stunning. And if I go ahead and scratch with my finger, I can make it come off. This glue wasn't completely dry. So you're going to want to make sure that if you go ahead and use something like this, that it's not going to necessarily get a whole lot of wear and tear. But for cards, scrapbook pages, even home deck projects, this is pretty fun stuff. Now, if you want to use actual metal leafing on Polymer Clay, it's somewhat easier. What you're going to do is just get a sheet of your leaf, which I'm looking at. Look at this gorgeous kind of mottled one. It's beautiful. I'm going to lay it right down on top of my conditioned Polymer Clay. Again, I'm using translucent, and I'm just going to lightly burnish it down with my finger. Now, remember I told you about all those little bits and bobs? If you've got leftover, like say from this, you can just kind of tear it away. Let's see here. We'll burnish it down just a little bit more. Boop, boop, boop. And you can just kind of tear it away with your fingers and then save all of this extra for another project. And if you miss a spot, you can just go back in and kind of tap it in and almost, you know, make it look like it was supposed to be like that. Now, because this is bulkier, you are going to either have to put another layer of Polymer Clay down on top and sandwich it in. So this is like a super thin layer of translucent, and you can put this right on top. Oop. Looks like I got a little extra on there. Woohoo. And then I would run this through the pasta machine just to get it to all really squish together. Now, because this is translucent, it will end up being pretty much clear, so you can still see the pretty shine underneath. Or once you bake it, you can go ahead and put some resin on top to protect it. But I would say that on Polymer Clay, really the leafing is a lot more fun to work with. I'll show you how this turns out at the end. Okay, the first thing I'm going to play with are these Creative Imaginations sticky back rub-ons. So these are just rub-ons that you cut out and you apply to a background like so. And then it says you just use your foil right on top. So what I'm going to do is grab a piece of foil. I like this. It's kind of a blue and purple oil slick. And I'm going to trim it down a little bit. Like I said, it's super crinkly. And the foil can go ahead and crackle off the back. Excuse me. So now I'm just going to put it down on top of my project and use a stick and just burnish it down. And then you peel it off. Now I probably should have used an anti-static, but you can see I can just rub it away with my finger. And there you go. So now look how pretty. You get that nice foiled effect. Now what I like about the mylar-backed foils, which is what I just used, is that they really don't add any bulk to the top of the project. You can still bend it and move it. You get all the shine and sparkle, but it doesn't really add that extra layer. It doesn't feel like an extra layer on top of it. By the way, here is just a sticky shape, and you can do the same thing. You just find an empty place. Notice how I'm just reusing this one. Burnishing it lightly with the side of a bone folder or a craft stick, and then you just peel it back, and there you go. Can you see how sparkly and shiny that is? Yeah. Okay, so I basically am doing the same type of swatch test using those two different sticky glues, regular adhesive, score tape, and then the sticky embossing powder with the mylar-backed. And you'll see here that, again, if you use a 3D glue, you're going to get a raised result, but with the tapes, it's much flatter. But again, it works really well. It's pretty easy to use. Now, cost-wise, the foils are going to be a lot less expensive than the metal leafing. This stuff is going to be much more expensive, and you're going to find it like in the picture framing aisle of the craft store. Just in case you were wondering, it also may be slightly more difficult to find. However, when you're using these foils, you're actually going to get a lot of use out of them, because even if you're half using a piece, like here, you can keep going until the entire backing is clear. So you actually can get a lot of goodie out of this too. And of course, the results are really, really pretty. Okay, so the first thing I have here is a piece of polymer clay. This is about a number 4 on my pasta machine, and I've put a piece of foil down, and this is the metal or the mylar-backed foil, and now I'm just burnishing it. And when I go to lift it up, you'll see that it will come off, although it is pretty hit or miss. It's kind of sketchy. Now, if you put it down and you almost treat it like wax, and I mean like, you know, removing of leg hair wax, you burnish it down and then kind of just quickly remove it in this kind of upward fashion, you will get slightly better coverage. Now the good thing about this is that once you've got it on here, it does stay on very well. It doesn't necessarily want to flake off. But the coverage, like I said, is going to be a little bit hit or miss on polymer clay when you're using the mylar-backed foils. This is the last part of the video today, and that's just the samples I've made. So I finished this card. This is using the mylar-backed foil product, and these were the stickers, the two-sided stickers from Creative Imaginations. So I wanted you to see that. Actually, it's holding on really well. I've been kind of like trying to scratch it off, but those rub-on stickers really are doing a great job. Now this is a card that I made using the metal leafing flakes, the little bits like this, and some double sticky embossing powder. I'm noticing that it didn't stick particularly well. I'll say it did stick well, but because I used embossing powder, the coverage isn't as solid as maybe I would like, but it's still a beautiful effect, and it's a great way to add some shine. Here's another one I did, and this is actually using the same embossing powder and the mylar-backed foils. I think maybe what I need to do is find the best sticky embossing powder. What do you think? So there's some other things too here I wanted to show you. This is the polymer clay piece that I made yesterday. I haven't finished it yet, so it'll hopefully look a little bit better once I've done the finishing work. Here's one that I made earlier that you can see how pretty those foils shine. And this is the metal leaf on top of the polymer clay. Here's another bead I made with some more metal leafing in polymer clay. As is this metal leafing in polymer clay with more alcohol inks. And then this is also metal leafing in polymer clay. You can see those shiny bits down there. And these are two examples of using the mylar-backed foils, aka this stuff, on polymer clay. And again, both will withstand the heat of polymer clay and look stunning under resin. Oh, and this is that piece that I used the foil metal leafing flakes, and then I put a layer of the translucent polymer clay over the top. So you can still see that the translucent clay went pretty clear, and you can see the beautiful leafing flakes inside. So I hope this clarified some things for you. Please leave me a comment or a question. I'd love it if you would subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. So I hope I've demystified foils and flakes and that you will want to use some of them in your projects coming up soon. So thanks so much for watching and have a crafty day.